Good morning, everybody. Welcome to American Dream Makers. This is Zena Krogadal. I am your host today. Have an exciting guest this morning. Heather Gapp is an amazing lady. But before we bring her on, I am going to play the intro video and we will get started. Good morning. Good morning. This is American Dream Makers. I believe that the American dream belongs to all of us. Not only can you achieve it, but you can go beyond. And my next guest absolutely is living the American dream, and she absolutely is helping others achieve it as well. Heather Gapp has enormous experience in all sorts of different backgrounds, and I'm going to let her tell you about it. But she just continuously is helping so many people. I met her at Coach Michael Burt's lodge back in the fall, and she is dynamite. She's dynamite. So if you're watching this live, I do want to ask you to go ahead and share this out so that she can get this message out, share it. And if you haven't already, go ahead and like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, American Dream Makers. Connect with me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Miss Heather Gapp. Here we go. Hi, Heather.
Good morning.
How are you this
everybody?
morning? How are you doing? How's
I am amazing. Thank you so much for asking.
Awesome. Now, tell us where you live, Heather.
I am based out of Denver, Colorado. I do travel, obviously, for work and business at times and as needed, including coaching. So on the occasion, I can be working remotely from other spots, but I am based out of Denver, Colorado.
Awesome. Denver. Beautiful Denver. Now, how long have you been living in Denver for?
So I grew up in the Four Corners area. I moved to Denver shortly after graduating because I wanted more opportunities and I wanted my children to have every option or opportunity they could ever dream of or want. So we moved here, I believe, 97, 98. And then we relocated to the East Coast in 2007 to about 2011. And then the kids and I came back and have pretty much been here the majority of the time. I did have about a 2.5 year stint down in Texas working down there. So yeah, most of
Wow.
my adult life.
Most of your adult life. Well, Denver's not a bad place to be most of your adult life. So that's awesome. Heather, give us some of your background. You have such an interesting um, uh, just background and all the things that you've done. So maybe just start off with who you are and what you're doing now.
So a little bit of my background is I grew up in small town USA. We jokingly call it hip town redneck. But of course it's not that. It's just small town USA. Amazing farmers, and Four Corners is a very diverse area. You can go 1 hour, be in the mountains. You can go 1 hour, be in the desert. You can go 1 hour, be in Arches National Park. It's a very unique area. And with that being said, I I grew up down there. When I moved to the city, it was definitely a different perspective. I remember telling my parents when we would come to Denver to visit my grandparents, I'm going to live in the city one day. And my parents would laugh at me and say, "What is wrong with you? You're not a city slicker." And I'm like, but this is where I want to be. And so, anyways, it continued from there. And it's just been a standing long joke most of my life. Needless to say, I have now brought two of my brothers up here that also own their own businesses and are very successful and doing great. So now the family kind of goes back and forth when everybody's around. But anyways, I came up here and I started my career, so to speak, at a worldwide civil and structural engineering firm. And with that came architects, FEMA, the national government, security. And I learned so much from them. And honestly, the majority of my skills and my background, I truly accredit to them with an amazing, and they are a worldwide firm by the name of Martin Martin. I am still in communication with them. I still go have lunches with some of them. They're an amazing, great company and a great group of people. And they really did a lot to set me up without even realizing it. So, when I kind of lined up what I called my 2-year plan, and my 2-year plan consisted of originally lining up with my youngest daughter's graduation and leaving home. Welcome life. Everything doesn't always go as smoothly or as planned. Anyways, I left Martin Martin. I took that leap because I thought that that was the time, and my youngest had left home, and she went down to Florida with her father. And so, scared as can be, I'm like, now or never, do or die. And so, with that, I jumped and I started my first company. I relied on my background a lot and set up a business for doing my background on a professional contract basis. So that I still had income coming in, but I was more flexible and could travel to do things that I needed and or wanted to do. So with that being said, I ended up down in Texas because some of my work at the engineering firm, we worked for a lot of they call them the big boys in the oil and gas industry, like Chevron, Texaco, Exxon. They loved my experience because I had done project management on some of the world's largest oil refineries overseas. So down in Texas, I was at Halliburton for a little bit. I was at uh, C&J Energy. Anyways, it was a great experience down there. Absolutely love Texas. I still love all my Texas people. I just love Texas. I ended up traveling most of the state the time that I was down there. Due to family situation, I ended up coming back, and I focused on the health side, which was another component I have always been into. I used to compete when I was younger on a level with the health and fitness and wellness. With the kids, obviously, I hadn't done that, but I'd always maintained my health, and that's always been a very passionate area for me. And for me, that also included all areas of health, that including the ones that people didn't always want to discuss or talk about. So sometimes, it was a little bit of an issue, but kind of worked through that, thank goodness, and got past that. And then so I anyways, I came back to Denver. I ended up at North Suburban Hospital in the OBGYN department. That was truly a blessing. At that point in my life, I had a lot going on, and there was some family stuff that was going on, and my grandma had been having some issues, and so I was literally bouncing from this place to that place, and I set up a temporary place over in Grand Junction as well. But there is nothing like sitting at your desk and hearing the heartbeats of the babies echo through the hall. Like, it would just immediately put the smile on your face. On certain days, it could, depending on what was going on, it would bring the tears out, from the mom side, listening to the different moms. But anyways, it was a beautiful experience. And then welcome COVID. So
Yeah.
with COVID, I had, it extended my 2-year plan initially. But that's to be expected. Nobody can plan for something like that. So anyways, I continued. The state, we were a site that the state had sent notification that we had to set up a drive-through in the parking lot of the hospital. So we worked that for a while as well. As you can imagine, the majority of the hospital shut down. So a lot of people lost their job. And so I was looking for other avenues. So I began working at home more remotely. And I started looking at YouTube a lot. Well, on YouTube, I ran across Coach Burt. And let me tell you, Coach Burt is absolutely amazing. So
Mhm.
anyways, I followed him for quite a while on YouTube and just watched his stuff. And then with that, just started branching out and found ways to apply what he was teaching with where I was at and what I was trying to do and my goals and how to tie it in. With that being said, for I don't know, 6 to 8 months maybe, and that's guessing, um, I would just watch his stuff and I'd post pictures randomly, not realizing or having any clue. Anyways, long story short, Miss Susan Rucker reached out to me on one of the videos. I had commented when I normally didn't comment, but there was just something in me on that particular video. I commented. Susan reached out to me, and that started it. And it took off from there. So I was on my way out to Nashville to meet Coach Burt and start those journeys. And that has definitely been a blessing in every avenue. And I have had the opportunity of a lifetime to meet people that are just amazing in so many different areas. Some of them, some of the rooms that you get into can be very intimidating. You are in there with some powerhouses and you're like, whoa. But at the same time, a lot of it depends on your perspective, because when you have an opportunity like that and you are in that kind of environment and setting, your perspective is going to make or break it. Do I want to be intimidated and, stand back, or do I want to stand up and take action and go forward and be like, you know what? If I'm the smartest one in the room, I'm in the wrong room. Here I am not that person. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
you also need to take advantage of that opportunity and try to learn everything you can. So at times it was definitely information overload. There was times where I would just leave and I was exhausted because there was so many great things and great people. And the room is so big that you literally cannot always get around to talk to everybody. So, trip after, for a lack of better words, you just start adding them up and you're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And it's a wonderful, I am truly thankful for my Coach Burt circle, is what I refer to them as, and my Coach Burt family. A lot of them I feel have become family just because I'm closer to them than I am a lot of the people that were around me prior to that.
Yes.
Because I've spent the last 2, 3 years working with them, getting to know them, watching them, studying them, seeing things I need to work on, improving to better myself and my businesses and, the future, and set things up properly and the best ways on how to do that from, their level.
Yeah.
Just obtaining everything possibly can for your benefit, and then putting
Yeah.
that into action.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's busy.
It's busy, yeah. And I was gonna say, so I wanna go back to, I know I mean, gosh, what, an incredible background of experience that you've had throughout your life. That pretty amazing. But I do wanna go back to the health coach part, just a little bit and touch on that, because you're currently still doing that, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I am not doing it full time. For a while, I was doing it full time. And honestly, right now, I am at a point where, when we lost my grandma, I had people asking me if I was sick, if I was okay. And so at first, it was kind of a defensive mechanism, and then it was like, wait a minute. I had gotten too skinny. I had gotten stressed out. I was jumping from Colorado to Texas to where they're at, trying to help, trying to take care of, trying to cover. And it's like I was doing all cardio, and I just got to this place and I'm like, you know what? They're right. I had been too stressed out and wasn't taking care of myself. And so I pulled back. So I contacted a family member and I said, I need to bulk. Now, a lot of people don't know what that means, but when you're in the weightlifting, bodybuilding, competing, it means you need to stack on, you need to add. You're at a point where you need some bulk put on you to go back in and chisel, cut, shape, mold what you want back, where, how. A lot of the bodybuilders use that for competition. I have no desire to compete anymore, none. But I do want certain things back because I had become too skinny and I wasn't healthy. So I pulled back from that. So I still actively do it, but it's not in the forefront like it was. And right now, I'm still working off the extra bulk I put on on purpose. And then
So
some of
that
my clients were like, wait a minute, go ahead.
so your I was going to ask, so with your health coaching, what is and what was your I guess niche part of it, because that's such a broad thing. Health coach can go from anywhere from, learning how to eat well, to working out, to anything in between, supplements, that sort of thing. So where's your niche in it?
My preferred area in the health coaching side of it was definitely eating healthy. I've ate healthy all of my life. That is something I'm very big into. In fact, my kids used to tell on me because I would buy the pasta meals for them and I would substitute the white pasta. So that has always been a thing for me. So definitely eating healthy, workouts, and then weight loss were my three main areas to help
Okay.
those that were in unhealthy situations that needed to change their eating and get back on track for their health.
That's great. Awesome. Wow. Heather, and then you mentioned that it was your grandmother that passed away.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. That is a hard thing when you lose somebody you love. So, and yes, that definitely
Thank you.
changes things and adds stress to the whatever stress that you may have already had. So I can understand why people were asking you how you were doing. And so with going through that, Heather, what would you tell others who are going through grief and the loss of a loved one?
Pray, pray. There's definitely trying times. And my grandpa is upper 80s. And my heart goes out to him. He's going through an awful lot. But with love and prayer and a strong support group, you can get through anything. It takes work. There's definitely a lot of family issues that come with that sometimes as well, because then you've got, lots of different things going on in different areas. But you just got to keep your faith, keep pushing, keep your faith, keep your focus. And honestly, the biggest thing for me personally was the mindset. And so I cut some people off because I couldn't deal with them to keep me in a good spot. So that was healthy for me during that time. So, and to each their own. I'm a 100% to each their own. You know what you need to do and what's best for you for your health. I know what I need to do and what works best for me. So I'm going to have faith and trust in you to do what's best for you. Meanwhile, I'm going to do this. So, you can lead and you can teach and you can guide, but the reality is everybody is different. So you have to be a little flexible in the process too, because how one deals with something and how they heal is not the same way another one's going to handle that, or how they deal with it, or those emotions that come with it during the trying times. So patience.
That's
Patience.
good. That's good. Yeah, I know so many people. I mean, that's part of our life, is that we will lose somebody that is close to us. And so sometimes it can feel like a very lonely place. And you don't, and it's one of those things that you can speculate what that might feel like, but until it actually happens to you, you don't really truly understand what
Sure.
that really can feel like. And grief is different for everybody. But like you said, the one thing for sure is that you want to lean on prayer and the people that your tribe, basically, the people that can support you. And you're right. And sometimes you got to purge out that room of whoever it is, because let's face it, when you're grieving, you don't have extra energy to deal with the normal things, or the things that you could in the past. You're kind of just trying to work through the emotions. And so that's great advice, Heather. Thank you for sharing that. So you had mentioned that you also have an engineering background. So you've got an engineer mind. And so tell us, what is an engineer mind like, moving through a place where there's lots of, well, first of all, engineers, the majority are men, right? There's a low percentage of women. So tell us what that had to been like for you to be, of that mind among a bunch of men, and how you navigated through that.
Me personally, I don't have a degree in engineering, but I do have a business management / accounting background. But with the engineers, I come to learn that they are definitely a breed of their own. They are very, very intelligent. And then I worked in the majority of my time in the structural department, and a lot of the structural engineers are a little more serious. And I'm going to share this for an analogy to help others relate. But one day we're getting ready for the company's ski trip, and one of the engineers came up to a principal at the coffee bar, and he was giving him a hard time. Well, the structural engineer didn't really laugh. And he's like, "What's wrong?" And so there was civil and structural in the same building, and the other engineer didn't really laugh. And so the civil one's giving him a hard time. And he's like, "You need to lighten up. You need to loosen up." And this is kind of what hit for me to help understand and relate. So they are definitely a breed of their own. And they are very, some of them have a very dry humor. But in this particular situation, the other engineer that wasn't laughing says, "Let me explain something to you." And it was kind of a younger, cockier one, kind of trying an older one, if you will. And so he says, "Let me explain this to you." He goes, "If one of your pipes ruptured because you're and I'm making up the numbers, but 0.238 of a centimeter off, what happens to your civil engineering, your pipes?" Well, they rupture and stuff goes everywhere. He says, "What happens when we are off that same amount, the 0.238 on a building?" He goes, "You could potentially have structural failure, a structural collapse. That is death." He goes, "It's a whole different level." He goes, and then he lightened up and he goes, "Maybe one day you'll understand it." So, but that just kind of gives you a little bit of the background of the mentality. And within the engineering and the architects, the majority, everything is a deadline. The majority of it was due last week. And you literally can be working on multiple projects the same day. I have had, since leaving the firm, I have had individuals ask me, "Do you have ADHD?" And I just start laughing, and I'm like, "Well, maybe, but not that I'm aware of." I said, "But I have been paid very well most of my life and took care of my children by working and being able to multitask at that level, because literally you are working on deadlines on projects by phone, by email, by people in and out of your office. You literally could be working on 15 to 20 projects at the same time or the same day. So you are bouncing all over the place." I said, "So if you want to call that ADHD, I guess I do." I call it a strength.
Well, absolutely. Honestly, I believe that. Yeah, well, and I believe that ADHD is a label, but I believe a lot of high achievers do have it, because their mind is all over the place and they have all these incredible ideas going multiple times. So every high achiever I've met operates that way. So, you can label it whatever you want to label it, and you can either make it a strength, or you can cause it to be whatever your crutch, but it doesn't really matter. in the end, the results of whatever it is that you're gifted with is the main thing. So kudos to you, Heather, that you knew what your gift was and you utilized it as a strength. And like you said, you got paid well to do that, because not everybody's gifted in that way. Not everybody can function in that way. So whatever it is, so just because somebody places a label, it shouldn't be, taken as a negative, for sure. So
Like, I would tell them, call it what you want to. That's your issue, not mine.
yes, yes, for sure. And then Heather, you you mentioned, that you grew up in small town USA, which, there's a lot of people who've grown up in small town USA. But maybe give us a little bit of a highlight what that really was like. Because for those that, grew up in the city, country songs are made mostly from small town USA, which I think is why it has risen to such popularity, because a lot of Americans, absolutely can relate. But tell us your perspective of what that was like, and the things that you enjoyed about small town USA.
Um, so my household, we definitely went to church 3 to 4 times a week. Actually, you know what, 2 to 4 times a week that I can remember. So that was definitely priority. Family time as well. We did have some family down there, but the majority of my family was not down there. So for me, small town USA growing up, we literally would go outside, and if we weren't in school or at church, we were outside playing with the neighborhood kids. And we literally would we'd watch one cartoon Saturday morning, and we would take off outside, and we would stay outside all day long until those street lights came on. When those street lights came on, we knew we better be at home. That was our thing. And then my mom had a whistle, and I still don't know exactly how she does it, but she would put like 2 fingers in her mouth, and she had this whistle. So my mom was like the backup, because the neighborhood people would call each other, and they're like, my son's not home, my daughter's not home. So my mom would stand outside and whistle, and all the kids knew that was like final call for those that weren't home. But we would go outside and play all day, literally. Our parents had no idea where we were at. We didn't have to worry about the things that you worry about these days. We drank out of the hose. We ate fresh strawberries and rhubarb and all the berries out of the neighbors' gardens. And yes, we stole them. But the neighbors knew if half their crops were gone, it was us neighborhood kids, raising heck again, or whatever they would call it. But we'd ride our bikes. We'd go out in the fields. We'd get dirty. We would catch horny toads. We would go into town. In town, the town that I grew up in, there's local native tribes around there. So a lot of times you'll hear the powwows at the parks going on, the Native American powwows. And you would smell the fry bread, and you would go and you would play. So at the park and the swimming pool and all of that was right there. And then sometimes back then, our going to the city was Durango or Farmington, because those were the two biggest areas around us. Well, Durango had a mall, so that was like the thing. And then we'd go there. Sometimes we'd go to Farmington, and we'd go hit the car shows and the base wars and all of that kind of stuff, which was a whole different experience that was fun. We enjoyed, but that wasn't an all the time thing for us to be able to do either, because that was more seasonal in that area. It wasn't a year-round event. So back then our weather was also a lot different, because I remember times growing up, we were also able to literally sled down our street from about September, maybe October, to March, sometimes April. And now they hardly get snow. So, even our times growing up back then were different. We used to do that a lot. We used to hunt. I grew up in a family that was very big in hunting. For the first, I'm going to guess 10, maybe 11 years, 12 years of my life, we ate the meat of whatever hunting season it was. So if it was, and then my dad and my mom would process the meat in the kitchen. And then, so we would go hunting, and the elk was all of our fancy stuff. The deer was the hamburger and the jerky and all of that stuff. But that's how we ate for many, many years. So we would go hunting, we would go camping, we would go fishing, we'd ride the ATVs, the four-wheelers, the razors, all of that. So those country songs were us growing up for the most part. We'd build the bonfires, we did all of that. So yeah, those country songs are not too far off
What
from
was
the
your
way you grow up.
favorite what was your favorite hunting season, hunting meat to eat? Game meat.
Oh, you know, I can't honestly tell you that, but I can honestly tell you, reflecting from adult looking back, I do think or believe that that is where a lot of my healthier habits or my ways started, because we ate natural. Yes, it wasn't labeled green and white and organic, but the reality is you're not going to get much fresher, real organic than that. And I understand a lot of people have a very difficult, hard time for that, you know, with, the animal rights and all of that. But for a lot of people, that is a way of life and that is normal. And for us, it was that way. I don't know. I don't know where I had a favorite hunting animal to eat, but we ate literally deer, elk, rabbits, turkeys. Yeah,
Hmm.
we ate a lot
Yeah,
of different things. And then my parents had freezers out in the shed, and everything went into the freezer, and that was also our meat for the winter. So
yeah. And that
my
saves a
parents
lot of
were,
money.
yeah, yeah, it really does. It really, really does. But I do believe that, without realizing it, that was where probably a lot of my healthier ways started. I didn't
Yeah.
eat all the processed stuff and all the stuff, I didn't eat any of that really the majority of my life. So anyway, yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And that makes sense. I mean, wow, And so my husband, he enjoyed hunting as well when the kids were young and he had more time. And
Yep.
so, and we also had chickens at one point. We had goats and we had turkey and
Oh, yeah.
that sort of thing. And so it's kind of funny because my daughter, one of her memories and things that she says she missed doing was you know really getting the chicken from the chicken coop and feathering them and then basically having them as a meal. And I remember her telling one of her little friends how she enjoyed that, and her girlfriend was like, that's disgusting. How could you, like, that's the thing
Yep.
you enjoy doing with your father, kind of thing, your dad. And I kind of chuckled too, like, wow, this is so funny. But she ended up marrying a city boy, so she's not really into that, these days. But I just crack up laughing. And I also think there was a time when we had this big garden. Well, it wasn't garden snake. It was a huge snake, but it wasn't like a poisonous snake. But it would come up from the deck stairs. So when I get home, the snake head was like,
Oh, wow.
where I was supposed to go to the front door. So I am not, a snake friendly person. So I told my husband, you need to do something with that. And he's like, why? It's a friendly snake. It eats the rats. It eats blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, it's either the snake or your wife. So either get rid of the snake or your wife will not be home. You have two choices here. Who would you like to live here? And of course, it was the snake. But then he's like, being kind of a country mindset for him, he's like, but I can't let the snake go to waste. So he made snake stew out of it. And
Oh, man.
I'm sorry, Heather, but I was not able to mentally get past eating it. But my daughter, she not only ate it, but she asked for seconds. And I just cracked up laughing, thinking, oh boy, it's going to be a real special guy that's going to marry her. But God had different plans. He brought her a city boy. And, but honestly, it's funny when you think about, the way things are when you grow up and the memories that you have and the things that shape us. And so, Heather, thank you for sharing that, because I think, you're right. Those are the things that you don't sometimes realize, that they really do have an effect on what you decide to do and what you end up loving. So thank you for that.
So, th- thank you for sharing your experience as well, because my youngest daughter, for a few years, grew up thinking she was eating pig's feet because when I married, I did marry. He grew up in a small town, but he traveled in military and all of that stuff. So he was more city, but he would tell my youngest daughter, messing with her, that the roast beef I made for dinner was pig's feet. So for quite a few years, she grew, because that was his way of giving, he would say, the redneck side of me a hard time. So a lot of the stuff I would make for dinner, he would label it something else, like a so roast beef. When I would make roast beef for dinner, he would tell our youngest girl that she was eating pig's feet. So she'd run around telling people for like 2 years that she was eating pig's feet, and they're like, "What?"
You
And
know that
everybody that knew about it was was laughing, and it's like, she's like, "This isn't funny."
Well, but pig's feet is huge in my culture, the Vietnamese culture, the Asian culture, like that. That's kind of a, that's not an unusual thing to actually eat or see, or chicken feet or any of that. I mean, so in some current countries, it actually is a delicacy, and it is something to look forward to. So it's funny that he was teasing her about it, but obviously in the American culture, that's not part of our, you know, palate. So
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. But yeah,
But
and that's the thing, is that Heather, you touch on something. It is so important what we put into our bodies. And and as we gotten away from that, what do you call it, from farm to table, or from your field to the table, we do lose some of those health benefits, because just the way that we have to process and keep it good enough as they ship the food, and that sort of thing. And so you're right. And as we look at our future in health, many people have a lot of health issues today that we didn't necessarily hear about before. However, we also have people living longer today than we used to before too. So there's plus and minuses to both sides, in that I think sometimes our
absolutely.
progression of learning, about disease process and the mechanism of our bodies, we've been able to solve some of the issues. And so I believe it comes down to, we have to live a balanced life, because we live in a time, Heather, right now, that most of us can't do farm to table. It's just not, well, we don't have the space, or it's just not time permissive anymore, because I mean, that's an all day thing, right? Growing your food, going,
Oh,
getting,
absolutely. If you
ranching.
if you're going, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
If especially when it comes to hunting, it is absolutely an all day thing, and sometimes it's multiple days. That's why you go up camping, you take the RVs, any of that. And if you don't have ATVs, razors, horses, we used to do a lot, horse riding, horseback. But if you don't have those items, you are literally hiking up and down the mountains or whatever your hunting environment is all day long. And it is an all day thing, and it's a lot of work, but it's healthy work. It really
Hmm.
is. It's kind of like
Yeah.
hiking and hunting at the same time. It's a lot of work.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you shared that piece of you. It's kind of sometimes fun to walk down memory lane, right? And kind of talk about those things. So then now you've been living in Denver, for these years, and um, it sounds like you've got some new adventures ahead of you, Heather. Do you want to talk about that? Or are you ready to talk about that? Or are you just kind of looking at what is next?
Right now, I am staying with what is next. I absolutely do have some big things coming up. I absolutely do have other huge and great items going on. But I'm one that I like to share things after once I get them up and going and successful, and not that they're not already. I just, you know, honestly, I've kind of learned through age and time that I used to share a lot of things ahead of time. And then sometimes something would come up and or life would change it or the situation would change. And I didn't like the way that reflected on me. And I didn't like the way I felt I was letting others down or appearing to not be, real or truthful, just because of another situation changing. So now I just kind of hold back. And then after it happens, then I'm like, wham, surprise.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand
So,
and see that.
yeah,
And not only that, but sometimes too, there's just not a time to share because something that um,
sure.
Coach Bird and even I don't know if you met Tim's story yet, but they certainly have talked about sometimes um, you just have to be careful as to how much you share in the beginning, in the birth of something, because sometimes there's people who are dream killers or very negative or they're not supportive of you. And then that can get inside of your head,
Sure.
one. Two, that also can be just negative things that you just don't necessarily need as you are working through stuff. And so many, and not only that, but I think sometimes just allowing a very few key people to know the details for counsel, but really allowing God to do his work. And that way we know it's all him and nobody else but him. Because as you know, Heather, a God idea is much better than a good idea. We can have lots of good ideas, but a God idea is what we're really, seeking to have, because that's truly is where we can thrive in the American dream, is allowing God to have his God idea in us. And so there's a lot of wisdom in that, Heather, to
Yeah.
keep things until it's time. And so I applaud you. And no matter what you ever decide in doing and going for, it's going to be amazing because you're an amazing person and you are an achiever. And so the sky's the limit for you. And just really grateful that you came on today with your busy schedule. So before we close it out, is there anything else you would like to leave for our audience? And by the way, Heather, I'm going to put up your email if anybody wants to get a
Okay.
hold of you. Is that what we want to do? Okay. So I'm going to place this
Yeah,
here.
absolutely.
hghealthqueen@gmail.com. Absolutely get a hold of Heather. As you can see, she's a very friendly person and she loves to connect. So, for sure, get a hold of her. And, she would love to help you out because she is all about helping others achieve success in life as well. So, Heather, yes, tell us what you would like to leave us with.
I would just like to say thank you so much. You are absolutely amazing, and it was an honor meeting you as well as many of the other individuals that we have met. We have truly had an opportunity and a blessing. We really, really have. And I am thankful for that for so many different ways and so many different reasons. So I would just like to say thank you personally for having me on and inviting me. I was definitely excited and nervous at the same time since it's my first one. But like Coach says, action, jump, take that leap, go there. So don't let that fear control you. So here I am, and I am thankful. Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate all that you do. I appreciate you reaching out. But I'd also like to thank all the amazing ones that we have around us because we truly have a great, amazing group around us as well. And we have to have that in order for our goals and our dreams and our success because we do need that mindset. We do need those people that push, to help. But that's another reason of not always sharing everything up front is you don't want everybody to feel like they had a part in your success. No, you didn't. I did. you know, so, you know, so many good things, so many good things. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Have an incredible day. And again, it's hghealthqueen@gmail.com. Get in contact with Heather Gapp. She's also on social media. So for sure connect with her. And thank you again. And we will talk to you later, Heather. So thank you guys for joining in. And whether you are watching this live or on the replay, please be sure to let us know in the comments, and also share this out. And let's get connected. I want to get to know you guys. Those of you that are watching American Dream Makers, let's connect. I'd love to have a conversation and see what you are up to and what your American dream is all about. So until the next time, and actually I've got a special episode coming up here soon. So you'll want to join back in here very soon. But anyways, until the next time, I will say goodbye for now.